Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the essays on the Gita with our beloved Ranga. We are on page, I have 36, and it is the section of the core of the teaching, beginning with the sentence, "But the determinism of Prakriti is not the last word of the Gita."
So we'll read the para. But the determinism of Prakriti is not the last word of the Gita. The equality of the will and the rejection of fruits are only means for entering with the mind and the heart and the understanding into the divine consciousness and living in it. And the Gita expressly says that they are to be employed as a means. As long as the disciple is unable so to live and even to seek by practice the gradual development of this higher state. And what is this divine whom Krishna declares himself to be? It is the Purushottama, beyond the self, that acts not, beyond the Prakriti, that acts, foundation of the one, master of the other, the Lord of whom all is the manifestation, who, even in our present subjection to Maya, sits in the heart of his creatures, governing the works of Prakriti. He, by whom the armies on the field of Kurukshetra have already been slain, while yet they live, and who uses Arjuna only as an instrument or immediate occasion of this great slaughter. Prakriti is only his executive force. The disciple has to rise beyond this force and its three modes or gunas. He has to become Trigunatita. Not to her has he to surrender his actions, over which he has no longer any claim or right, but into the being of the Supreme. Reposing his mind and understanding, heart and will in him, with self-knowledge, with God knowledge, with world knowledge, with a perfect equality, a perfect devotion, an absolute self-giving, he has to do works as an offering to the Master of all self-energizings, and all sacrifice. Identified in will, conscious with that consciousness, that shall decide and initiate the action. This is the solution which the divine teacher offers to the disciple. Quite a few things to discuss here. So, he is beginning with, but the determinism of Prakriti. We have discussed already before that the lower level one of your body, mind and life individually and universally matter, the world of prana or life and the world of mind. This is universal and individual. These are the level one where there is determinism. What is meant by determinism? Fixed law, no freedom. It goes exactly by the law of causality. One thing determines another, one thing determines another. Okay? It's like a machine. Machine will not do any function other than what it is told. So we also, our body, mind, life is doing what nature is telling us to do. We have a feeling that I am doing, but that's because of the ego. The tree doesn't think that I am growing. It's nature that is making it grow. It doesn't think like that because it doesn't have an ego. Okay? The animals also have a rudimentary ego, but they also just obey nature. We also are obeying nature, but because of our ego, we think that we are doing. I am eating, I am thinking, I am deciding to do this, I am doing that. But actually that's all an illusion. Largely an illusion. The only thing in you which has got freedom is your soul. But it has bound itself hand and foot on purpose and plunged itself into body-mind life. Why? Because it's playing a game with itself. It wants to imprison itself and come out of the prison and enjoy the freedom. Individually, through each individual, including animals, a lower level. But the escape from the Prakriti is not possible for animals, it's possible only for human beings. So, the determinism means that the actions, the thoughts and the feelings and the actions are all determined. There is no freedom. It is determined by whom? By nature, universal nature. So, now he is saying that the determinism of Prakriti is not the last word of the Gita. There is a certain amount of freedom, which is an illusion, Sri says elsewhere. You feel that I can do something by my own will. It is largely an illusion, but still that is very necessary, because if you don't make an effort, how will you rise? How will you progress? So that false idea is itself, it's got a positive aspect. It will make you try to improve yourself and go better. So, this is the background. But the determinism of Prakriti is not the last word of the Gita. The equality of the will, the rejection of fruits are only means for entering with the mind and the heart and the understanding into the divine consciousness and living in it. He is talking of the equality of the will, and the rejection of fruits are only means for entering with the mind and the heart. So you make an effort to make your mind quiet, okay, and you reject the
fruits of action.
The fruits of action you reject. Okay, try not to have motives in your action. I want to do this, I want to do that. It's a very interesting thing. Disinterestedly, you have to do the work with interest. Because if you do it without interest, normally you will not put in your whole effort. Okay, there has to be a motive, but that's largely decided by the ego, which is a false construction of nature. Okay, so he's saying the equality of the will and the rejection of fruits are only means for entering with the mind and the heart and the understanding. Mind is clear, the heart is also clear, it's a place where you have your emotions. And then he's talking of the understanding. How is the mind different from the understanding? The understanding, when he uses the word, he means the self. The pure mind.
But it seems that this is a very strong statement.
Yes.
The equality of the will and the rejection of the fruits, one would think that's quite a bit.
Yes.
But not according to Sri
They're only means.
Only the means, yes.
They are instruments for getting to the self. Okay, so for entering with the mind and the heart and the understanding into the divine consciousness and living in it. So what is this divine consciousness? You can say in a very large way that the divine consciousness starts at the higher mind level. As soon as you make your mind quiet, your consciousness rises, loses identification with body, mind and life. The moment you lose your identity with body, mind and life, the divine life begins. It may be imperfect, but it begins. Because that's the second level, the spiritual planes of consciousness. Then there is the third level which we'll talk about later on. Okay, so. And the understanding into the divine consciousness and living in it. That's the thing. It's not enough to have an experience. In the beginning, always, in the beginning, it's only an experience. You experience it, and the gravitational pull of the lower nature pulls you down, and you come back again. But you have a vivid memory of the experience, and it is so wonderful that you want it again and again. So, once you have to stabilize your consciousness there, not in your body, mind, life. That's what he's saying by living in it permanently. When he says living in it, he means permanently. Okay? And the Gita expressly says that they are to be employed as a means. They are only instruments. The equality of the will and the rejection of the fruits of action. They are means, not the aim. And the Gita expressly says that they are to be employed as a means as long as the disciple is unable so to live, and even to seek by practice the gradual development of this higher state. There you are. The living in the higher state is a gradual development. It's not a one-time leap. The leap is an experience. Then you come down, you assimilate the experience and make more effort, and then you have a second experience, third experience. Sri Aurobindo says about his own nirvana experience. He says that what I could see and understand there, I had difficulty in bringing it and applying it in the physical world. In other words, you have the experience, you are absolutely calm and quiet, and you are not affected by anything. You are equal, and you are not, there is no motive, no ego. But you drop back, and when you drop back, the old nature has a say. The new nature does not have much of a say. So you try to bring down that into the, and you have to do it repeatedly, he says, so that it could be stabilized. It can be done in two ways. Either you go there and live there, or you pull down that consciousness which is there into your body-mind life, which is more difficult.
Mother speaks about pulling it down. She doesn't recommend it so much.
Yeah. The pulling down is a very big feature in the integral yoga. In the other yoga, the pulling down is not necessary. You only ascend. In fact, what is down, you reject 90% of the time. Okay, so you use these so long as you are not able to live in the divine consciousness, or even to seek by practice the gradual development of this higher state. The higher state, no identification with body-mind life. That's a higher state. Okay? So, and what is this divine whom Krishna declares himself to be? It is the Purushottama, beyond the self that acts not, beyond the Prakriti that acts, foundation of the one, master of the other, the Lord of whom all is a manifestation, who, even in our present subjection to Maya, sits in the heart of his creatures, governing the works of Prakriti. He by whom the armies on the field of Kurukshetra have already been slain while yet they live, and who uses Arjuna only as an instrument or immediate occasion of this great slaughter. Prakriti is only his executive force. A very big sentence, and we'll go step by step. So, he is now introducing what is this divine that we are talking about. I mentioned that it can start at the higher mind level, the spiritual planes of consciousness. But that's an imperfect divine consciousness. The perfect divine consciousness which the Gita wants and what Sri Aurobindo wants is the Purushottama level 3. Level 1, we are identified with body-mind life. Level 2, the spiritual planes of consciousness. But there, normally it is the impersonal aspect, and you don't have much power over your body-mind life. The power is applicable there, but in the physical world, it's not so applicable. You go to the third level, you have the power also to act in the physical world fully.
How many achieve that in the whole ashram? I think not so many.
It's not that you don't have any power at all.
Ah.
You do have some power, but it's not complete. The power can change your mind, it can change your vital also to a large extent, but the body will not be changed. The body is the densest part. For that, you have to climb right to the supramental level, the third level. But even the body changes do take place. In Sri Aurobindo's case, his whole skin became golden color. Then in the record of yoga, there is he never used oil for his hair. There was a natural oil which was coming, and his hair didn't need any oil. His skin became smooth. His teeth started becoming white. Even the toenails started changing shape. All this is mentioned in the record of yoga. So body changes are there, but not full transformation. And what is the transformation intended in the integral yoga? Your body will be without disease, free of disease, free even of death. That's the aim in the integral yoga. Nobody has achieved it yet, but it will be done, he says, in the next race, the supramental race. Okay, so. And what is this divine whom Krishna declares himself to be? It is a Purushottama. Now, that word Purushottama also, to make you remember, there are three Purushas. At the lowest level, there is the Kshara Purusha. Kshara means mutable Purusha. The psychic being is actually growing, na? So it's mutable. From a sleeping condition, it is getting woken up and becoming more and more perfect. So that's the Kshara Purusha. You go to the second level, you have the Akshara Purusha, the immutable consciousness. And in the, he will discuss that. So in the first one, you are in ignorance, you think body, mind, life. The second one, you know that you are not the body, mind, life, but you are only a witness, and the full power to control the lower is not there. You go to the third level, you have the power, the knowledge, everything is there, and all the dualities get perfectly harmonized at the third level. Now, he has mentioned something interesting. And what is this divine whom Krishna declares himself to be? It's a Purushottama beyond the self. The self is level 2. Okay? The spiritual planes of consciousness. And level 2, there is no action. It's an immutable Akshara Purusha. Beyond the Prakriti, which is immutable. Level 1. Okay? That acts. So, there is Prakriti is acting at our level. The consciousness in the second level is not acting. And in the third level, there is both action and non-action. It's a harmony of both. In your consciousness, you are absolutely not moving. You are immutable. But you have the power to do things below.
So the Purushottama is the third level?
Yeah, the Purushottama is the third level. So that's why I said Kshara Purusha, Akshara Purusha, Uttama Purusha. Uttama means the highest. So reverse the thing and make it Purushottama.
Okay.
Uttama Purusha. Kshara Purusha, Akshara Purusha, Uttama Purusha. The highest, third level. Okay, so. And he is a Lord. So he is the self, is a Purushottama. And what is that? He is beyond the self. And the self does not act. It is immutable. Beyond the Prakriti, level 1, that acts. Foundation of the one, master of the other. Foundation of the one, foundation of the immutable. It is the foundation of the immutable. The transcendent creates the immutable universe. And beyond the Prakriti also, that acts. He is the foundation of the one and master of the other. He is the foundation of the universe, but he is the master of the lower. The word. Okay? The Lord of whom all is a manifestation, who even in our present subjection to Maya, sits in the heart of his creatures, governing the works of Prakriti. The divine presence is there everywhere. Everything is there, and he is governing from behind the scenes. Okay? He, by whom the armies on the field of Kurukshetra have already been slain, while yet they live, and who uses Arjuna only as an instrument or immediate occasion for this great slaughter. So, things get determined at the higher level, and they take time to become realities here below. 1920, Srimad is saying India is already free, is going to be free. Mother also said, in fact she used some very interesting language. She said, it is not that India is going to be free, India is already free at that higher level. So it takes time for it to come down, and by the time it comes down, the play of possibilities comes up.
So Arjuna here is only being used as an instrument?
Yes. He is only an occasion for doing it. Because if you remember, we also discussed this, the chief executive officer of any company in the world does not run the lathe and the machine. He gives the orders to his assistant director or whatever he is, and he operates and gives instructions to the machine man. So you require representatives in the physical world. He doesn't act himself directly. He acts through nature, and nature acts through the individual. Even nature needs an individual. You remember that famous story which is most illustrative of this fact. The man drowning in the sea. A boat comes and says, "We'll rescue you." He says, "No, God is going to save me." 3 times the boat comes. He drowns. He wants God to save him. He doesn't realize that God does not act directly in the world. He acts through representatives. It needs a boat to do that. He doesn't break his own laws. So, when he went again, he asked, "What happened?" God said, "I sent you 3 boats. You didn't take the advantage." So, this is what he's saying here. He acts through the universe, and the universe produces the individual.
So I have a specific question on a friend of mine, Marilyn Widman. You knew her, I think.
Yes, I remember her.
And her stomach swelled up, and she said, "I'm not going to the doctor." She said, "If I die, then I go to Mother anyway." So Mother said, if she does not go to the hospital, she will die in 3 days. And she died. Now, Mother could have saved her. We don't know. Maybe that was her choice to go.
Now, that's an interesting question. Mother will save her provided the soul wants to live.
Yes. Yes.
This is a very interesting question. That raises also the question of the euthanasia.
Yes.
Is it right or wrong? So this is a question. At our level, we can't decide that, but the spiritual person will be able to decide. Mother will decide what her soul wants, not what her body, mind, life wants. And if mother sees that, yes, the soul wants to live, the person will recover. The spiritual people, the spiritual realized man, acts not in contravention of nature, but in harmony with nature. What is intended, they can do. But if there is a possibility of a change, they will apply the change. I'll give you an interesting incident of someone who, mother was looking at all our hands, One day she started in the class. We were all young children then. And she started looking at all our hands. And she saw everybody's hand. And one person's hand she saw. And she said, she didn't say anything. She just became serious and went away. Then this person went again to mother and said, "Mother, you didn't say anything about my hand, but you just pulled a serious face and you walked away. What did you see?" So mother said, "Your lifeline is very short." But she saved her. The person is still living. But actually she underwent through a lot of difficulties. There was a time when the possibility of death was there. But mother saved her. So they look at the possibilities also and see. If there is a possibility of a change, they'll do it.
It's very interesting because I have a personal experience of that.
Yeah.
Kemi looked at my hand and she said, "Your lifeline was over at the age of 23. And that's when I met Mother.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Second birth.
Second birth.
Yes. I was also very much interested in my horoscope and I got it done. Okay. Because I had the exact time of my birth. My parents told me. So I got my horoscope done. And they told me that there will be a change in the middle of your life. And it came true. So horoscopes, in fact, Sri Aurobindo has written a small essay on horoscopes. There are people, very rationalists, who say this horoscope business is nonsense. Sri Aurobindo says, no, not at all. And the argument given is usually, most of the forecasts are all wrong. So Sri Aurobindo's counter-argument will be, doctors, medicine is a science. Doesn't it go wrong? So it's a science. And if you can read correctly, then the forecast can be quite accurate. And maybe you don't know, but Sriranda studied his own horoscope. And he mentioned also that somebody had said about his life that there will be 3 things. And they all came true, Sriranda says in the evening talks.
Yes.
So there is definitely, astrology can be a science. Yeah. So, he by whom the armies on the field of Kurukshetra have already been slain, while yet they live, and who uses Arjuna only as an instrument or immediate occasion of this great slaughter. Prakriti is only his executive force. There you are. Prakriti is a machine. It is subject to the laws of causality, law of karma. Okay? There is no escape from that at the lower level. The soul which has come down has the freedom, but it has imprisoned itself. So once it disengages itself, it has the relative power. Not full power, but relative power is there. It can act. The disciple has to rise beyond this force and its 3 modes or gunas. The 3 modes of nature are, we have already seen, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Sattva is the principle of light, illumination, understanding, okay, harmony, subtlety. These are all the qualities of Sattva. They correspond to the mind, correspond. Then the Rajas. Rajas is the principle of energy, which is our vital. Unfortunately, the energy is used very often for selfish purposes and it is impure. But when you see it, its corresponding origin at the highest level is absolute power, pure power, energy, without any impurity in it. Then, that's what he's saying. And there is finally the tamas. The tamas is the principle of stability, darkness, okay, non-understanding and no change. They don't want any change. So it guarantees the stability of forms. So this is the tamas.
Guarantees the stability of form.
Doesn't want change at all. It wants to stay put where it is. Okay. The disciple has to rise beyond this force and its 3 modes or gunas. He has to become Triguna Atita. 3 guna, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, Atita. You have to go beyond them. You have to cross. You have to go beyond them. Okay? That's exactly what is meant by this soul goes out of the body, mind, life, and sometimes you feel yourself hovering 1 foot or 3 feet above the head. You feel yourself to be outside the head. Outside the body, in fact. So, at present, we feel that our consciousness is in the body. No? We feel that I am conscious here. I am not conscious there, I am conscious here. But at that time, you will feel that the body is in the consciousness. Because your body becomes much bigger, your consciousness becomes bigger, and your body is a tiny element in this vast consciousness. It's a reversal. Okay? So, not to her has he to surrender his actions. So, at present, we are surrendering ourselves totally to nature. We have identified ourselves with the body, mind, life, and we think that we are free. Actually, you are not. You have surrendered to nature. You don't have to surrender to nature. You have to surrender to the divine. You have to go to the out of your body, mind, life, and go to the self, over which he has no longer any claim or right, but into the being of the Supreme. Because when you go to the self, you realize that you are not doing anything. Therefore, you can't claim the results of any action. You can't say that I have done this, therefore I need. You have not done it. It's nature who is doing. So you just say, okay, let nature do. I renounce my claim to the fruits of work. You realize that when you go to the self. Okay? So, reposing his mind and understanding, heart and will in him, with self-knowledge, with God knowledge, with world knowledge, with a perfect equality, a perfect devotion, an absolute self-giving, he has to do works as an offering to the Master of all self-energizings and all sacrifice. Identified in will, conscious with that consciousness that shall decide and initiate the action. This is the solution which the divine teacher offers to the disciple. So we'll look at the sentence again. Reposing his mind and understanding, heart and will in him. Right now we are reposing our mind and heart and understanding in the body-mind life. At that time you have to place all these things in him, in the spiritual planes of consciousness. Then he is saying there should be self-knowledge. You have to know who you are. You are really the self, the psychic being. You are not the body-mind life. That's the self-knowledge. You must also have God knowledge. You must experience God in himself. That's a transcendent. But you must also know what the world is about. So you have the three knowledges: transcendent, cosmic and individual. These are the three ways that the divine manifests himself, or rather in transcendent he doesn't manifest himself. In the universe he has manifested himself impersonally. In the individual he has manifested himself personally. So this is what you have to know. And once you have known that, you continue to work in the physical world without rejecting it. And now you become an instrument of the divine. So he guides you. You don't have your own will. He will tell you what to do and what not to do. Witness the unbelievable surrender of Sri Aurobindo to this guidance. Go to Chandranagar. Within 24 hours he goes there. If we were told something like that, we would say, wait, I have to settle my bank account. I have to give wages to my servant. I have to do this, I have to do that. I have to prepare pay the rent for the house and then I'll go. But no, he goes immediately. And then there also he gets a command. Go to Pondicherry.
Yes.
No money, no clothes even when he came here. He had no clothes. Just what he was wearing. He is writing to Motilal Roy in Chandranagar, send us some clothes and also some shoes. The only shoe I had has been bagged by Subramanya Bharati. He never moved out of the house. But so even his shoes he didn't need. But the shoes he had, Subramanya Bharati, you know, the famous poet in Tamil Nadu. He was a freedom fighter. So he lived in Sri Lanka for 2-3 years in Pondicherry. So that was his condition. Okay? So utter surrender to the Lord. Okay. So that's what we are. Identified in will, conscious with that consciousness. Okay? That shall decide and initiate the action. At our level, it's a mind and the vital that initiate the action. I want this, I want that, I decide to do this, I want to learn French, I want to learn science, I want to become an engineer. You are deciding. But then at that, you are surrendered to the divine, he tells you what to do.
I'd like to make a little change. In the capital T here is the divine. That shall decide.
That's right. That shall decide.
Yes.
And initiate the action. Initiation also.
Yeah.
They will make you do. Okay. This is the solution which the divine teacher, Sri Krishna, offers to the disciple Arjuna. This is the way to live. So you don't decide whether you want to fight or not. The divine will decide for you, and the divine cannot decide for you unless you go to the self. So get rid of your moral ideas, get rid of your fixed mental ideals, because they are all moral ideals, ethical. I can't kill anybody.
Yeah.
I can't do this, I can't do that. Get rid of all these things, go to the self and obey the divine. And do what he tells you to do. And what he tells you to do differs from individual to individual. He decides. He sees the whole picture and then decides. I mentioned this before and I still mention again, because we mustn't think that the divine has got only one possibility. He sees the possibilities for the individual. In in Arjuna's case, he was told to continue to be a Kshatriya and do his duty. In Sri Aurobindo case, what happened? Exactly the opposite. He was fighting for his country. The divine says, no, that work will be done by others. You go now to Pondicherry and sit and do yoga. Pull down the supermind. That's your work. Change your work. So the divine is telling him something else. What the supreme word of the Gita is, it's Mahavakya. We have not to seek, for the Gita itself declares it in its last utterance, the crowning note of the great diapason. I think that's how it's pronounced. Diapason. It's a whole range or compass of tones. That's what it means in music. You say what it is. Diapason.
The organ has a huge range.
That's right.
Diapason.
Yeah. It has two meanings. The whole range or compass of all the notes. That's the one meaning. There's another meaning also. A grand burst of swelling harmonic tones.
And this is what the organ does.
That's right. A grand burst of swelling harmonic tones. Many tones together, but harmony. That's a diapason. In French, you have the word diapason. Diapason is the tuning fork. In French.
Yes.
Okay, so with the Lord, now, this is the Mahavakya of the Gita. Mahavakya, the supreme word, if you want. With the Lord in thy heart, take refuge with all thy being. By His grace, thou shalt attain to the supreme peace and the eternal status. So have I expounded to thee a knowledge more secret than that which is hidden. So, Guhyatama is the word used. Further, hear the most secret, the supreme word that I shall speak to thee. Become my-minded, devoted to me. To me do sacrifice and adoration. Infallibly thou shalt come to me, for dear to me art thou. Abandoning all laws of conduct, seek refuge in me alone. I will release thee from all sin. Do not grieve. Yeah. Manmana bhava mad bhakta mad yaji mam namaskuru. These are the words used there. Become my-minded. Your mind should be centered fully in me. My-minded. Become the divine-minded. Okay? Then become the devoted to me. Become my bhakta. Then do sacrifice to me. Madhyaji and adoration. Infallibly thou shalt come to me. If you do this, you will come to me. And I shall deliver you from all sin. These are the most famous words in the Gita. Okay, Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Aham tva sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shucha. Do not grieve. I will release you from all sin. Become my-minded. Live in me, not in your body, mind, life. This is what he is saying. The argument of the Gita resolves itself into three great steps by which action rises out of the human into the divine plane, leaving the bondage of the lower for the liberty of the higher law. Okay, so three great steps. Remember, the chapter is, Sri Aurobindo is telling us the core of the teaching. What the core of the teaching? These three steps. What they are, he is expounding now. Okay. The argument of the Gita resolves itself into three great steps by which action rises out of the human into the divine plane, leaving the bondage of the lower for the liberty of the higher law. First, by renunciation of desire, by the renunciation of desire and a perfect equality, works have to be done as a sacrifice by man as the doer. He is not the doer actually, but in the beginning you have to take yourself as the doer and offer your works to this as a sacrifice. A sacrifice to a deity who is the supreme and only self, though by him not yet realized in his own being. We have not yet realized the self, but you have to do that. Whatever your conception of the self, offer it to that. Okay? So, first by renunciation of desire and perfect equality of works. Do the works as a sacrifice to a deity who is the supreme and only self. This is the initial step. Step number 2. Secondly, not only the desire of the fruit, but the claim to be the doer of works has to be renounced in the realization of the self as the equal, the inactive, the immutable principle, and of all works as simply the operation of universal force, of the nature soul, Prakriti. The unequal, active, mutable power. Now, this sentence is pregnant with meaning, so we'll have to look carefully at it. Okay? This is the initial step. Secondly, not only the desire of the fruit, but the claim to be the doer of works. You are not the doer of works. And that cannot be unless you get rid of your ego. Because so long as the ego is there, you will feel that you are doing. And you have a right to the fruits of the work. I have done the work, I should get the benefit. That's the feeling, but it should not be like that. Okay, so the claim. But the claim to be the doer of works has to be renounced. In the realization of the self, when you realize the self, that becomes possible. Because the self is equal. In other words, absolutely untouched by sorrow or suffering or happiness. It's untouched, equal. The inactive, no power, absolutely calm and quiet. Inactive, immutable. The immutable principle and of all works as simply the operation of universal force of the nature soul Prakriti. So, you realize that everything is being done in the body, mind, life by nature. You are not doing anything, you are only watching. You are the witness. Lastly, the third one. The Supreme Self has to be seen as the Supreme Purusha governing this Prakriti, of whom the soul in nature is a partial manifestation, by whom all works are directed in a perfect transcendence through nature. Note, through nature. It doesn't act directly. Through nature he is acting. To him, love and adoration and the sacrifice of works have to be offered. The whole being has to be surrendered to him, and the whole consciousness raised up to dwell in this divine consciousness, so that the human soul may share in his divine transcendence of nature and of his works and act in a perfect spiritual liberty. I'll read that last bit. Lastly, okay, because something has to be seen there. The Supreme Self has to be seen as the Supreme Purusha, not as the impersonal self. The self has to be seen as the Purusha, the third level, governing this Prakriti. There you are. It is so. This governing this Prakriti, he has mentioned in many other places. He uses different words. First of all, he conceives. Whatever he wants to do in the world, he conceives. Then he executes. And then he governs. These three words, he uses different words in the Life Divine. When we are doing that, we will see. But these are the three things that it does. The Purushottama first conceives, I want to do this. And then he does it, creates the universe. And then the universe is creating individuals. He comes down into each individual and is guiding it, governing it. So,
and yet we don't see that in the world.
Pardon?
We don't see that in the world's
No, you don't see him
life.
at all.
No.
It's like you go to an exhibition hall, you see the paintings.
Yeah.
But you don't see the artist. He's not there. Exactly in the same way. So, by whom all works are directed in a perfect transcendence true nature. That's to be noticed. Okay? To him, love and adoration and the sacrifice of works have to be offered. The whole being has to be surrendered to him, and the whole consciousness raised up to dwell in this divine consciousness. Not experience it, but dwell permanently. That's the difference, okay? In this divine consciousness, so that the human soul may share in his divine transcendence of nature and of his works and act in a perfect spiritual liberty. Now, this word share is very interesting, but before that also, there is something else. Yeah. Supreme Purusha governing this Prakriti, okay, that we have seen. Conception, execution, governance. Then, of whom the soul in nature is a partial manifestation. So, this is there. Your individual soul is a partial manifestation of the divine. You are a part of the divine. The word used is amsha. Amsha means a part. And that part has to realize that it can have a relation with the whole, sharing.
Yes.
So you are sharing in his consciousness. So that's what is meant by. But you can also, in the Advaita philosophy, you can become the whole. How can the limited become the whole? The part can merge into the whole. It's possible for a grain of salt to become the whole sea. So you become. So this is the different. If the soul merges into the divine, you have the Advaita philosophy. If the soul has a relation with the divine, you have the Vishishta Advaita philosophy. Or the duality, Dvaita. Okay, so there are different experiences that you have. Okay. The first step is Karma Yoga, the selfless sacrifice of works, and here the Gita's insistence is on action. The others are saying, no, action is going to imprison you. Don't do action. Get away from action. So Gita is insisting on action. The Gita's insistence is on action. The second is Jnana Yoga. Okay? The self-realization and knowledge of the true nature of the self and the world. And here the insistence is on knowledge. But the sacrifice of works continues and the path of works becomes one with, but does not disappear into the path of knowledge. The last step is Bhakti Yoga, adoration and seeking of the Supreme Self as the Divine Being. And here the insistence is on devotion. Okay? So you have knowledge, you have devotion, and finally you have also the power through Karma Yoga as the divine. And here the insistence is on devotion. But the knowledge is not subordinated, only raised, vitalized and fulfilled. And still the sacrifice of works continues. The double path becomes a triune way of knowledge, works and devotion. And the fruit of the sacrifice, the one fruit still placed before the seeker, is attained. And what is that? Union with the divine being and oneness with the supreme divine nature. So, the chapter, the core of the teaching. 3 steps is the core. Step number 1, renunciation of desire. I've got them noted down here. I'm just telling you. Renunciation of desire. Perfect equality. And works to be done as a sacrifice to God. This is step number 1. Renunciation of desire, perfect equality, works to be done as an offering to the divine. What I am doing is not for myself, I am offering it to the divine. Step number 2, renunciation of the doer of works. I am not the doer, I realize. Okay? Realization of the equal, immutable self. Realization of all works as mechanical operation of universal Prakriti. Third step, realization of the Supreme Self, governing Prakriti. That's the Purushottama. Offering of our love and sacrifice of work to Him. So you have Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. This is the core of the teaching.
Could you explain why Bhakti Yoga is the third part and not the second?
Because Bhakti Yoga leads to the personal aspect of the divine. See, when you are in your body-mind life, you have to do sacrifice for the works of God. So it is karma yoga. Okay? You are doing the work for the divine. Then you manage to go to the self. But that's impersonal. There is only knowledge there. Then when you go to the third one, you have the personal aspect of the divine, and there devotion comes in.
Thank you.
The trend in Jnana Yoga and also in the Sankhya Yoga, the trend is knowledge, mostly. Be satisfied with that. But now Gita and Sri Aurobindo, they go to the third level and also have devotion for the Lord. So that's the core of the teaching, the 3 steps. Very clearly enunciated. So, the next chapter is, he is going step by step now. So first he has said, the divine teacher, then the disciple, then now Kurukshetra, the occasion in which the teaching is given.
Yes.
So that's a Kurukshetra. And Kurukshetra is a very interesting thing because war. There are many people who say, war is bad, we must have peace. Okay? Is peace possible when you are in the normal human consciousness? Sri Aurobindo will categorically tell you, not possible. You can try, keep trying. And of course, harmony is better than war. But war will always be there so long as you are in the ignorance. The debt to Rudra has to be paid before you can worship Vishnu. That's what he says. Rudra is the one who destroys. So, it's a principle and it is bound to be there in the wrong way. Because war also can be done in the right way. Okay? You can fight for the divine, you can fight the evil in the world, you can fight your own imperfections.
But nature is always destroying also.
Yes, that's right. It is creating and destroying. Creating and destroying.
Yes.
That's a very important. The other day someone asked me, and this we have to explain this. Mother is saying that the world is being created every instant. So they asked, what does this mean? The world is created once and for all, and it's going on. What is meant by it is being created every second? Then you have to go back to the principle of, in nature, there is construction and there is destruction. And it is simultaneous. There is every instant of time there is a creation and there is also a destruction. Now, if there was a time gap between the creation and the destruction, you would recognize both the movements. Oh, now it's being created. Oh, now it is destroyed. You will recognize both the movements. But if that time gap becomes less and less and less and less, okay, then you will not be able to distinguish. It becomes a continuous movement. So that is what is meant. And this truth is represented by Brahma is creating, Rudra is destroying immediately, instantaneously. But Vishnu is making it seem as though it is a continuous movement and there is no destruction, no construction. You feel like that. So that's the truth of Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva.
Thank you, Ranga. Namaste all.